Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global News episode 90. We are 10 live streams of this series away from reaching 100 episodes, where we started out as the Snowflake Corner and it's evolved into Global News. It's been a live stream specifically on world news outside the UK, and we are 10 live streams away from reaching 100 episodes of it. Pretty amazing. 90 live streams of this is quite a lot, to be fair. It really is a lot. But hello everyone, it is the 11th of November 2025. It is just gone 6 o'clock PM UK time roughly here. We are dual streaming live on youtube.com/Reganelite, and we are on twitch.tv twitch.tv/Reganelite1 here. We have 6 different stories that we're going to be covering. I have one funny video in between, and then we will finish off with the funny memes here. Good evening, Jao. Hope you are doing well. Guys, if you haven't, do check out Jao's YouTube channel. One of our moderators on YouTube. He has his own YouTube channel. If you want to ever want to check out his own content, you can do so there. Yep. Having my dinner, so we'll be around. It's going to be a quiet live stream anyway, my friend. Normally Global News is normally a very quiet live stream. Very few people talk in it and whatnot. So I like to call it the quiet live stream. Out of all the live streams I do, this is the quietest one, because there's other live streams going on, and there's never a good spot for me to put this live stream on, unfortunately. So so some people will watch it back later on, which is also greatly appreciated as well. So let's get started, guys. Our first one here is with the government shutdown here. This is from the latest from the Associated Press here. So these are the 8 senators broke with the Democrats on the government shutdown deal, and here's how they explain it. Now, I want to make it very clear. So there has been a government shutdown for several weeks now. For quite a while now, and a lot of people have been suffering. A lot of workers have been suffering. Aviation people have been suffering. Airlines have been suffering. There have been lots of Americans have suffered. People have lost their jobs, their livelihoods, because of this shutdown. Let me make no bones about that. People's lives have been deeply affected by this shutdown. Now, before yesterday, before this all started happening, it was pretty much a case of the Democrats were not going to budge. They needed to stand firm and not move any needle whatsoever, and stick to their guns, basically, and essentially ensuring that the Republicans, that this shutdown is on the Republicans and on the Republicans only, and that the main reason the Democrats couldn't move on their issue is because of the issue on healthcare, the Affordable Care Act, which is due to expire at the end of the year. And they needed a guarantee from the Republicans. They needed something from the Republicans that would be passed before they could open the government. And they've always said that they would discuss it after reopening the government, which is bollocks, because the Republicans on several occasions have just ignored requests from the Democrats. And when the government opens, the Democrats will once again have no say whatsoever in this. So why have these 8 Senate Democrats broken on the government on the shutdown deal? The main reason for the majority of them is that they have nothing to lose, because a lot of them are either retiring or stepping down from their roles. So they are not going to face any accountability they're not going to be facing accountability from the American public. Pretty much these 8 here, they are going to be, and you can tell by their age, they're not going to face any accountability, knowing that they are responsible for taking away Americans' healthcare. They are deliberately going to take away Americans' healthcare, and they have shown that they do not give a flying shit about its own people, because they are all they're at the stage of their lives where they can just quit and walk away, and that's essentially what they're going to be doing. There will be no accountability for any of these people for the government being open. Now, you might think, well, Regan, it's a good thing, isn't it? Now the government going to be open, which means that people will go back to work, people will start getting paid again, and we can ensure that people will get their pays back as well. Those who have lost out on pay as well. Yeah, that all sounds well and good. Yeah, there's just one problem. The whole bloody point of this long endeavour government shutdown was to guarantee the Affordable Care Act, which they are not got. And because these lot have not guaranteed it, it means that that Americans are going to be screwed out of their healthcare insurance. They're going to be screwed out of their healthcare insurance. They already pay enough for their healthcare, and it's going to be a lot worse. You're going to find a lot more Americans going to be off healthcare, and a lot of them just aren't going to be able to afford it. And the American and the healthcare businesses are going to make a serious ton of money. And not only that, it makes the Democratic Party as a whole look weak. It also paints the picture that the Democratic Party were responsible for this government shutdown, when they're not. And in the end, the responsibility lies with the Republicans, because they're the ones who control all three. They control the House, they control the Congress, they control the White House, the Senate, and Congress. And that's not how it will look in the eyes of average American people. They will look at it as the Democrats have folded. I also want to make it clear that even though his picture is not here, this was Chuck Schumer's plan. And the reason why this is Chuck Schumer's plan, because he wanted to get the everything opened, but the reason why he's not going along with them is because he's voting no, and he's saying he's voting no because if he goes along with them, he will get kicked out at the next time he's up for the ballot for the people. But his people in his area need to understand that he's responsible for this. But the problem is they don't see that. So Chuck Schumer is essentially responsible for this just as much as these 8 senators. That he will paint this picture of, I've not done anything, I'm still against it. But he's the one who's orchestrated all of this. So the senators, 8 in total, face almost instant blowback from Democrats as they broke ranks and voted to allow the Senate to move forward on compromise legislation that would reopen the government. Their decision on Sunday night was labelled a betrayal and pathetic by some of the most prominent voices in the Democratic Party. To my mind, this was a very, very bad vote, said Senator Bernie Sanders, a Vermont independent who caucuses the Democrats. The group of defectors consists of several senators, who are retiring next year, as well as a number of former governors. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana praised them on Monday evening, saying that they decided to put principle over their personal politics. No, the other thing as well is this was not just Chuck Schumer and them. The other thing as well is that they've been getting stick, the Democrats, from the aviation industry, as well as many businesses, because they know they have a better chance of getting the government back opened, pressuring Democrats than they do Republicans. And the thing is that from a lot of these businesses' perspective, they don't give a shit about politics. They just want to be able to make money. So in their eyes, it's just a case of they just want the government. They want the government open so they can make money again. The senators surely knew the criticism that was coming, but after huddling for hours, often in the Senate basement over the last week, each senator reached the same conclusion: it was time for the government shutdown to end. Shelley, a senior Democrat who will be retiring from the Senate, often took the lead in negotiating the compromise legislation to end the shutdown, has made it a priority to extend subsidies for health passes under the Affordable Care Act. But she had also expressed reservations about voting to shut down the government. Yes, but she also knows that that's not guaranteed. And you're not going to get that from them. In the end, she settled for a plea from Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota to hold a vote in December on the health subsidies. That's not going to happen. They're going to delay it. And you're going to be made to look like a bunch of idiots. This was the only deal on the table. This was our best chance to reopen the government and immediately begin negotiations to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credit that tens of millions of Americans rely on to keep costs down. She said at a news conference following the votes Saturday night. This is not guaranteed. They've got no guarantee on this. The Republicans can turn around on this. They can turn around on this. The Republicans won on this. Make no mistake about it. Durbin is another senator who will be retiring after a long Senate career. Durbin holds the number 2 position in Democrat leadership and broke ranks with Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer. Again, I want to make it clear, Chuck Schumer did not break. Chuck Schumer is in it with them. The only reason he's coming out and saying no is so that he doesn't get kicked to the curb by the voters. Everyone knows he's responsible, but he's only doing it to protect him, cover his ass. If his arse wasn't on the line, he would be voting no along with them. After saying that the shutdown had caused too much pain for the American people. In a statement before the vote, Durbin, who argued that Republicans are still to blame for the shutdown, said, "This bill was not perfect, but it takes important steps to reduce the shutdown's hurt. Not only would it fully fund SNAP for the year ahead, but it will also reverse the mass firings the Trump administration ordered throughout the shutdown." Katie, a former Virginia governor, said one of the last Democrats to join the group, willing to vote to advance the bill. He said, as of Sunday night, he was checking over the legislation with his staff. For him, the deciding factor was the language in the funding bill that prevented President Donald Trump's administration from conducting more mass layoffs, an issue that is particularly important in his state. He called the agreement a memorandum of mischief, and he said he was only able to get the agreement as negotiations reached a critical juncture. The kinds of non-strategic mass firings and reductions in force actions that have traumatized federal employees since Inauguration Day, they can't do them anymore, Caffeine says. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they are. They're not. Listen, the Republicans' word means nothing. The Republicans' word means nothing. And all these Senate Democrats, all they are doing is giving back the power to the Republicans. That's all they're doing. They will not get. If they think that the Republicans are going to keep their word on any of this, they're talking out of their ass. The Republicans don't care. They don't care. As far as they're concerned, that they are going to win. Dems are not getting anything here. And the worst part is, this is the worst part, right? The deal that they're striking here, right, is the exact same one that was offered at the start of the government shutdown, right before the government shutdown. This was the deal on the table. It's the exact same deal. That's the worst part. Which makes the Democrats look like a bunch of idiots. Not just the ones who voted against it, but all of them, the party as a whole. It makes the Democrats look weak and spineless. Hassan, a former governor, had been involved in negotiations from early on and emphasized that the threats to federal food aid had made the situation more urgent. Hassan says she heard from families about deep pain that the government shutdown had caused, made worse by a president who illegally repeatedly chose to help cut off help for families who were trying to buy groceries. After weeks of bipartisan conversations, she said on Sunday, "I voted today to reopen the government so that we can get back to work of helping a grandiose status." The government's funding bill refills the funds for a supplemental nutrition assistance program, as well as ensuring that states spend their own funds to keep it running during the shutdown will be reimbursed. King is an independent who caucuses with the Democratic Party and is a former governor. He had been voting since the outset to reopen the government, yet he's also played a key role in negotiations, including often holding senators in talks for his Capitol basement office. He has consistently said he is opposed to using the government shutdown as a negotiating tactic. He's also wanted Congress to extend the Affordable Care subsidies after Republicans rejected a proposal from Schumer to extend the ACA tax credit for 1 year. King said it showed that the shutdown was not working. The shutdown was not working. This is what he was saying. No, what the shutdown was doing was making the Republicans look bad. The pressure was all on the Republicans to move. They didn't flinch. You did. They didn't flinch. The question was, does the shutdown further the goals of achieving some needed support for the extensions of the tax credit? Our judgment day was not producing the results, King said. But you don't have power. You're talking about you can't do anything because you're in opposition. You have no control. Not in the Senate, not in the House. You have no control of holding the Republicans to account in any way, shape, or form. This was your only way of holding them. Your only way, and you flubbed it so badly. Returns increasingly irate, has grown increasingly irate as the shutdown has wore on, as Republicans refused to give in to Democrats' demands on the ACA credit. As air travel was increasingly affected by the shutdown, the economy of the home state of Nevada, political swing state, was also under threat. In a statement, Rosie said that Trump and fellow Republicans are weaponizing their power in alarming ways to inflict unimaginable pain and suffering on working people, like fully withholding SNAP benefits and gutting our tourism industry by grinding air travel to a halt. Yeah, they was. But it doesn't matter. You folded. So it doesn't matter. Cortez Masto is another Democrat who had been voted to reopen the government. She also emphasized that the impact to travel had been particularly harmful to Nevada and that the impact of food assistance programs provided a new sense of urgency. She said that the lines at food bank were the longest she has seen since the coronavirus pandemic. These stories are horrific, she said. I'm not taking anything away from the suffering that people are going through during this government shutdown. I want to stress that right now. I absolutely understand the stress and the anger. You know, people's lives have been destroyed because of this government shutdown. Make no mistake about it. I am fully aware people's lives have been destroyed as a result of the government being shut down. However, we needed the Republicans to move position on at least on the Affordable Care Act more than anything. Yeah, to protect people's lives. More lives were going to be harmed as a result of the government being reopened. If people are hurting now, they're going to get even more hurt when the ACA credits end. And it's just gonna say, and Democrats, what can they possibly say? Like, they can say, well, it's because of these Dems, yeah, turned on us. The party is not united in any way, shape, or form. Fetterman, who was elected in 2022, has also been voting to reopen the government. Breaking with his party, as he does with many other issues, he also criticised Democrats for using the shutdown to demand concessions on healthcare. I'm sorry to our military SNAP recipients, government workers, and Capitol Police who haven't been paid in weeks, he told us on social media. It should never have come to this. This was a failure. Yeah, a failure on Republicans. But that's not how people will see it now. Cowards. All 8 of them are cowards. Spineless cowards is what they are. And what they don't understand is that so many people's lives are going to be hurt as a result of it. More lives will be directly hurt as a result of this in the long term. Yes, yes, you can argue that some people's lives are going to get their jobs back, they're going to get paid again, and the reimbursements, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It doesn't change the fact that people's lives are going to get destroyed. They're not going to get their ACA. They're not going to get their health care. Americans are going to have, there's going to be more Americans having even less healthcare than ever before. Wales, good to see you there. Sorry if I didn't see your comments before. Hope you are doing well. The Democrats folded to do not fight like Europeans do, even that the Russians are rebelling under an iron heel. And the Americans fold at the sight of problems. Sorry, they are weak. Yeah, the Democrat Party are weak. They are weak. This is a classic problem of bully versus diplomat. Diplomat can compromise as well as speaking all languages. But believe wars start with and end with words, where words can be used to avoid conflict. Yeah. Remember, this will be remembered as the Democrat. This will be extremely damaging to the Democratic Party. Extremely damaging for them. After those election results they've had only just like a week or two ago. Like, it just makes the Democrats look weak and spineless. It's absolutely terrible for them. I feel so sorry for there's a lot of Democrats who've been standing up and fighting this. And it's completely just gone down the drain. All for nothing. All of it is coming for nothing. The next story I have for you guys is from Al Jazeera here. So Israel's parliament has passed its first reading of the death penalty for the terrorism law. So I have covered this story on Rumble, but I wanted to add it here for those who are here today on Global News. It says here, critics say that in practice, the death penalty will apply almost exclusively to Palestinians who kill Jews and not to Jewish hardliners who carry out attacks on Palestinians. Yeah, because, you know, racism. You know, it's always about one rule for one lot. And this is the most nastiest man. You know, you think about some of the most evil and vile people on the planet. This man right here is one of the most evil. And I don't use that word lightly. This is one of the most evil people. I don't ever want to see that man ever set foot in the UK in any way, shape, or form. He is a nasty individual. So cold and heartless, this man. But yeah, this is what they're looking to add bring back the death penalty, but only to Palestinians. And it says specifically, specifically for Palestinians who killed Jews, right? That's what it says, yeah. So those Jews who have committed the most horrible of atrocities on Palestinian people, and there's a lot of them that have done that, They will not face anything like this. And to be fair, most of them will be considered martyrs or heroes for doing such things to Palestinians. But yeah, this is the death. They're bringing the death penalty, and this is another excuse for Israel to get away with lots of missing bodies. So when people ask when they're looking for a certain person, if people in Gaza or international communities or organizations start asking where certain person is or body or whatnot, they can just say, oh, we executed them they committed this crime X, Y, and Z with no evidence. They can do that and they'll get away with it because they've already breached international law. It's not like anyone's going to stop them. So Israel's parliament has passed its first reading of the bill that would introduce the death penalty for terrorism. The amendment to the Penal Code proposed by far-right National Security Minister Ishmael Ben-Gvir was approved by 39 votes to 16 in the 120-member Knesset on Monday, signalling it has support from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. According to the draft text, the death penalty will apply to individuals who kill Israelis out of racist motives and with the aim of harming the state of Israel and the revival of the Jewish people in its land at the time of Israel had reported. So this is their way of basically saying, if you try and stop us, this is enough. The context really matters, and this can be interpreted as, oh, you're trying to stop us taking back our land that belongs to us by our divine right. You should be hanged for it. That's essentially what it can be. Critics said the wording mean that in practice the death penalty would apply almost exclusively to Palestinians who killed Jews, not to highlanders who carry out attacks on Palestinians. And attempts to introduce similar legislation have failed in the past. The current bill must pass a second or third reading before becoming law. A statement from the National Security Committee that includes the bill expansionary note says its purpose to cut off terrorism and its root and create a heavy deterrent. Ben-Gvir welcomed the result of the vote on social media and said that his Jewish Power Party is making history. Human rights groups have condemned Ben-Gvir's long-running push for such legislation, warning that it targets Palestinians specifically and deepens systematic discrimination. Yeah, it is, but they don't care. While the death penalty still exists in a small number of crimes in Israel, it has become a de facto abolitionist state. Nazi Holocaust perpetrator Adolf Eichmann was the last person executed by a country when he was put to death in 1962. The vote on the bill took place during the United States brokered ceasefire, which came into effect last month, aimed at ending Israel's war on Gaza. Israel has been accused of violating the ceasefire with consistent attacks on Gaza, while Israeli settlers and the military regularly carried out deadly assaults across the occupied West Bank. Israel said Hamas is breaking the terms of the ceasefire and remains a threat to its military in Gaza. Responding to the parliamentary vote, a Palestinian group said the proposed law embodies the ugliest fascist face of the rogue Zionist occupation and represents a blatant violation of international law. Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs expertise calls the proposed bill a new form of escalating Israeli extremism and criminality against the Palestinian people. More than 10,000 Palestinians, including women and children, are being held in Israeli prisons. 10,000. And they can cut that number significantly with this, because that's what they want to do. Israeli and Palestinian human rights organizations assert that they are subject to torture, starvation, and medical neglect that has led to the deaths of numerous detainees. Yeah, that's been going on as well, which I don't want to pass on here. But yeah, the death penalty is going to be introduced in Israel, and it's going to be specifically targeting Palestinian people. Make no mistake about it here. It says will apply almost exclusively to Palestinians who killed Jews. No, they will look. There will be lots of innocent people, that will unfortunately lose their life as a direct result of this. They will lose their life as a direct result of this. Make no mistake about it. This is their way of killing. They're looking for a lawful way of killing Palestinians as well. Israeli citizens are already being pushed away from a lot of places. This will increase its exposionality. There's a mixed reaction, because there's some Israeli people, some people from the country are seeing it, and some people just see it as a case of, well, if the world doesn't want us, we don't want them, sort of thing mindset. They've been raised to think that Palestinians are scum, worse than animals. Wales is in an extremely dangerous position, whilst the other states of the Union need to get it together to turn on the heat. Yeah, Wales is definitely going in a different direction at the next seed election for sure. Definitely is. The next story I got for you guys is one from Middle East Eye. Radio silence. How the defense of Sudan's el-Fasher collapsed after the comms blackout. Soldiers who fled North Darfur city describe how jamming of radios and satellite phones left troops confused and isolated as the RSF attacked. Let me make this clear. The RSF, the reason why they're able to get the weapons, the drones and procurement is because they have been getting help, specifically from the United Arab Emirates. They have been playing a role in supporting the rapid support forces more than anyone in this. It's that I do put a lot of it, they have helped turn the tide for the RSF. And I hate that they've done that. Because as a result of what they have done, they've allowed so many more lives to die in Sudan than needed be. And it's possible, I know it's highly unlikely, but it's possible the government would have been able to would have held on to this city. And there's been many lives have been killed and butchered and whatnot in this city as a direct result of what RSF have done. You know, the kind of weapons and technology they have is only because of the aid from the UAE. Now, I'm not saying the war would have ended, but I do put a lot of the blame on them for what happened here. So the total collapse of defences in the besieged city of el-Fasher in Sudan's Darfur was perpetrated by a communications blackout that left troops confused and isolated as rapid support forces fighters closed in. Soldiers who fought in the city, commanders and a telecoms worker had told Middle Eastern Eye. So according to the soldiers who are part of the joint forces, former Darfur rebels fighting alongside Sudanese armed forces, all communications devices became unusable on the 26th of October as the battle hung in the balance. That afternoon, the soldiers and two joint force commanders said the main operations room was suddenly unable to contact the military command in Khartoum, the political leadership in Port Sudan and their troops on the front line. Officers then decided that night to withdraw their forces from el-Fasher, the sources said, leaving the city where 260,000 people had been trapped under siege for 18 months to the RSF here. So those who were in the city made the conscious decision to take their own forces out because they didn't want to lose their lives there. So they made that difficult decision because they had no communication and more lives would have been lost. Well, unfortunately, even though they've lost lives, they've saved soldiers' lives by pulling them out. What they've done is also left loads of people at the mercy of the RSF, and we've covered already extensively what the RSF have done in el-Fasher as a result of it. While most SAF and Joint Force commanders escaped, many soldiers did not receive the order to withdraw and so died fighting. They were killed fleeing or had to find safety alone. Videos, photographs and satellite imagery showing widespread massacres committed by the RSF in el-Fasher against civilians. Survivors have described to MEE witnessing summary executions, rape and various other kinds of abuse. The el-Fasher Residents Committee pro-democracy group accused the military of abandoning the city. Sky News cited insiders as saying SAF accepted an indirect deal to withdraw. However, soldiers, commanders and officials insisted to MEE that no deal was struck and that the chaos withdrawal was caused by the total communications blackout. Quote, sophisticated weapons, especially drones, were supplied to the RSF in el-Fasher by UAE, in addition to mercenaries and other assistance. But most effective thing was the jamming that separated the units on the ground from each other. Mohammed Hamro, an aide to Darfur's governor Mini Marandi, had told MEE. When the front of the forces lost communications with the rear and the defensive positions, that means you can't continue fighting. If there is no communication, yeah, that really does throw everything out a whim, that is for sure. Good evening, Dave McGuinness. Hope you are doing well. And Indie Duck. Hope you're both good to see you both there. Well, oh god, I pressed the wrong button. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Just fix. So, for more than 500 days, the RSF lay siege to el-Fasher surrounding the city with 31 kilometers of earth walls to stop anyone fleeing. The paramilitaries had shelled the city and staged repeated attacks in recent months. But until late October, the SAF soldiers, joint forces, troops and youths who mobilized to defend el-Fasher managed to keep the RSF at bay. MEE sources described 4 lines of defense. Quote, The first was barricades on the front line surrounded by trenches and backed by military vehicles carrying mobile forces armed with light cannons and heavy guns, one of the joint force soldiers said. Second was the mobile special forces that deployed in large tunnels that covered hundreds of meters underground, which backed the barricades and were used to repeatedly attack waves of RSF fighters when they tried to enter the city. Beyond that were two bases, the 6th Infantry Garrison, where the SAF were based, and the former UN missions headquarters where the joint forces resided. They were surrounded by anti-personnel and vehicle mines and deep trenches with reinforced entrances, the source said. The fourth line defense, the sources said, were tanks and artillery units as well as drone operatives. Yeah, there's el-Fasher there. For 18 months, soldiers and civilians in North Darfur capital were cut off from the outside world. Resupplies of weapons, fuels, and ammunition were rare, with airdrops ceasing after the RSF shot down a cargo plane in October last year. Medics treating civilians who managed to escape al-Fasher for Tanawa, a town in North Darfur, said almost everyone displayed symptoms of malnutrition. Famine was often declared in displacement camps outside the city before they were taken by the RSF. In such circumstances, al-Fasher defenders adopted ambush tactics to counter their enemy, which have repeatedly supplied with advanced weaponry by the RSF pardons the UAE. And this is what I meant to say. If it wasn't for the UAE, this probably wouldn't have happened as well. And many times we coaxed the RSF into the city and then ambushed them from the tunnels, using intensive fire drones to inflict maximum harm and losses, the second soldier said. One of the most successful operations using this tactic was in September, when we allowed the RSF to enter the Darfur Joint Forces base, surround them from different directions, killing a lot of them. Occasional offenders of their own were staged. When we got good intelligence about RSF weakness in some areas, the soldiers said. So we managed to get fuel, munitions, vehicles, and other supplies. Despite these tactics, the RSF day by day were making advances and had taken some positions within the city's outskirts. Soldiers described being outgunned by fighters using sophisticated equipment such as Chinese drones supplied by the UAE. The difference between our forces was very big, the second soldier said. On the 21st of October, just before RSF and SAF delegations flew to Washington for US-sponsored ceasefire talks, the paramilitaries began their assault. Soldiers and mobilized youth had described the attack to MEE as the most vicious yet. The first soldier called it unprecedented, saying the RSF advanced on 5 fronts. We heard they brought more forces to the outskirts of el-Fasher, headed by Abdel Ramdin Diego, he said, referring to the brother and second-in-command of the RSF leader Mohammed Hamdan Diego, who's better known as Hemdi. On 22nd of October, the RSF managed to enter the city after they defeated our checkpoints, eastern cities of the city. By the next day, they were near the army base and they succeeded to enter the presidential palace and the governor's resistance, which is only a few meters from the army base. According to the sources, this is when the military leadership in the city decided to allow the RSF to enter the 6th Infantry Garrison with the intention of ambushing its fighters once inside, as they had with the joint force base previously. It's important to point out that the army base was not a major position, as troops had been deployed elsewhere long before. You can notice in the RSF videos that there was no military equipment in the base when they entered, the second soldier said. The RSF began attacking the garrison early on Sunday morning. By sunrise, they were inside the trap, the soldier said. Then we began the counter-attack in the afternoon. Our reconnaissance forces actually entered the army base at around 3 p.m. and we were ready to attack them as the RSF was celebrating and making videos. MEE have reviewed a photograph which appears to show 2 joint forces inside the garrison that sources said was taken on the afternoon of October 26, after the RSF announced he had taken the base, and released videos of the forces there. MEE was unable to verify when it was taken. So this is a video. This is a Photoshop of them apparently there. Just as the counter-offensive had begun, the sources said the soldiers found they were unable to communicate with each other. So they were about to the counter-offensive and had begun, and all of a sudden that's when the blackout happened. The operation room lost the connection with the forces on the ground, and you tried to reset the system many times, but we failed, the second soldier said. We tried everything, the radios, the phones, satellite phones, and the Motorola walkie-talkies. All the devices were interrupted. Sudan's infrastructure had been devastated since the war broke out on April 23rd, including telecommunications services. And since February 2024, when the cellular blackout struck the country's 3 main mobile network operators, those firms have only been able to reach 30% of previous clients. In el-Fasher, Sudan, under siege, had only been able to use the Starlink satellite internet service to contact the outside world over the past few months. The military, meanwhile, also had satellite phones made by Foronda, a UAE-based company. According to a source from an international telecommunications company in Sudan, telecom systems experienced severe disruption from the 24th to the 26th of October across the regions of Dhofar and Kordofan. Mobile phone signals and internet service were severely impacted as the RSF seized el-Fasher and Barida, a town in North Kordofan taken the same weekend, it said. Meanwhile, a Sudanese tech expert told ME that people who managed to flee el-Fasher told him that they were unable to connect to Starlink in the days before the city was taken. My sources told me that 2 drones were flying over the Delaware Allah neighborhood every day for 5 hours at a time. Whenever they were in the air, people could not connect to Starlink, he said. The drone seems new, the type was unfamiliar. People in el-Fasher had not reported such issues connecting to Starlink before. Middle East and I has asked SpaceX, Starlink's parent company, for comment. Tech and military experts told me that interfering with satellite connections was not necessarily a complex operation, and jamming such services have been seen before in Sudan. Large-scale satellite signal jamming was recorded off the Sudanese coast in August, and when MEE visited Port Sudan in May, GPS services were not working in the city. Footage of satellite phones can be jammed to or eavesdropped on, the source in the telecoms company said. And the jamming and hacking of Starlink is more difficult but not impossible. However, Itrine Mayanar, a technologist at Human Rights Watch, told MEE that it would be pretty complex to jam many frequencies from radio to satellite phones. Again, I want to stress that this is not technology by the RSF. This is the UAE here. 2 weeks before el-Fasher fell, an image emerged online purposely showing an RSF fighter with a Chinese-made Wolf Team drone jammer mounted on the truck. Drone jammers overload signals used by the aircraft, mostly by targeting specific frequencies. The Wolves team had a range of 2.5 kilometers and reportedly disrupt signals across multiple frequencies. Tech experts said that in this theory it could be used to target comms devices, but it was not certain the system could be used for blackouts like the one reported on October 26. Also circulating online in recent days, a photo appearing to show a member of the RSF carrying a drone jamming system on his back. Mohammed Al-Amarin, a leading member of the former rebel faction, Sudan's Liberation Movement, which is part of the joint forces, claimed that the image shows a Chinese-made Norado drone jamming system. That's apparently what he's got there, is a jamming system on his back, the RSF fighter. While ME was unable to confirm the model, it is consistent with Chinese backpack-mounted multi-band radio frequency jammers. Abdel Arez told MEE the tech was supplied by the UAE and said the comms blackout sparked the collapse of its defences. There was no deal of this withdrawal, and it happened according to an assessment of our forces on the ground after they lost connection with the units on the ground, he said. Melissa and I had asked a Wolves team and Norado for comment. From the rest of it can only confirm its phones experienced disruption, that the exact SIM ID could be provided. We're not in a position to comment on external reports or assumptions, it said. As the night fell on el-Fasher on October 26, commanders in the operation decided to continue the battle despite being cut off from their troops and the leadership in Khartoum. We were waiting for sunrise to use the cover of night to repair the system and conduct an attack, at least to use liaison officers to communicate with groups on the ground, the first soldier said. The SAF and Joint Force commanders were operating outside the University of el-Fasher after deploying there earlier in the battle. We got them to the university by making them see the leadership were among the tank and artillery units in the north while we were brought them to the university, the soldiers said. After comms had been cut, officers from various units were gathered together at the university, with the soldiers describing as a difficult process. Some of the officers used vehicles without lights to avoid the RSF forces, and others walked in the night. We lost many officers and soldiers during these operations, he said. Finally, we succeeded to gather the leadership to sit, evaluate, and decide the next step. Once convened, the commanders and officers decided to withdraw. The leadership assessed the situation and found it impossible to continue the fighting without being able to communicate with the units and receive instructions from the headquarters, the first soldier said. Yeah, you just can't run a system without communication. According to the source close to Sudanese Prime Minister Kamal Idris, the commanders in el-Fasher were able to reach the military leadership through a Starlink connection to get the withdrawal plans approved. The plan, the source says, was to get senior commanders out of the city first. Once that happened, most heavy weapons and equipment were removed. If you notice, none of the leaders were detained at their heavy military equipment didn't fall into the hands of the RSF, the first soldier said, but the pullout descended into a chaotic bloodbath. In one of the attempts to withdraw, SAF leaders hid in a hospital, which was bombed by drones shortly after they left it, a source close to Idris said. Meanwhile, defending troops in the city's north and elsewhere were unaware that there were any orders to leave the city and were left behind alongside el-Fasher's long-suffering citizens. So it really does come down to the blackout and the jamming. And that's what gave RSF the victory in the city. If it wasn't for that, they would not have been able to take it. Because they've been managing to hold it for so long. It wasn't a case like they couldn't handle. Even with being cut off, they still managed to hold the city pretty well. Those jamming operations are even beyond the capabilities of Yemen, maybe Iran or Russia, says Jal. We have jammers in the main cities or military bases. It's a countermeasure difficult to any attack. The UK too, by the way. Yeah. They're really it's very fascinating to have read how it really harmed them as well. I thought that was very fascinating to read. That was definitely worth reading, of how the city fell in the end as well. It's a very shambolic way of it all falling, but it had to, unfortunately, because of the situation it was in. So guys, we're going to take a little break here. I've got a funny video for you guys. This is actually a really, really funny one here. I hope you guys get a laugh out of this, because I certainly did when I saw it. I did send this to a couple of people as well. This is really, really funny here. You might not get it straight away, but just keep watching and keep listening, and you'll get it over time, guys.
There used to be loads of billionaires in Britain, but thanks to the disgraceful anti-billionaire sentiment peddled by the likes of Zach Polanski and the plant pervs in the Green Party, billionaires are being forced from their homes. And when I say homes, I mean each billionaire owns multiple properties. So one billionaire on average is having to flee between 7 and 8 homes. Most people fleeing persecution will have to leave just one home. So billionaires on average are experiencing between 7, 8, sometimes 23 times more persecution than some twat in a war zone. The Green Party won't tell you that. This street used to be teeming with billionaires. Look now, absolutely not a soul. Total shithole. Open any newspaper in this country and then put it down and go to the Green Party's social media page, and you will find the most shocking language being used to describe the vulnerable rich.
How can you make some of the hardest working people who haven't had a pay rise in years pay extra tax and allow multimillionaires and billionaires to continue not paying capital gains? They're not just millionaires and billionaires, Mr. Podansky. They're people who contribute to society. Sure, it's not this society, it's places like Monaco and the British Virgin Islands, but let's not split hairs. There used to be a 13-room mansion here, but after all of Pomansky's rhetoric, the billionaire has clearly picked up every single brick, stuck it into a Samsonite Quadrix 4-wheelie case, and left the country. Now it's a car park. Just yesterday, 3 billionaires risked their lives on a small boat. Yes, the boat had a private chef and a small crew, and it was moored in a cove just off the coast of Barbados. But still, there are sharks there. Someone could have been eaten. So how do we stop Mr. Pazimski from doing untold damage to the billionaire wealth creators in this country? Tax the rich? Well, we've got a better idea. Continue to tax the poor. Donate now. Calls cost £1.50 unless you're a billionaire, in which case you don't have to pay anything. Don't worry about it.
Zach Polanski actually responded to this tweet here as well. He actually saw it and said, "Oh, I better apologise to all the billionaires then." I hope you guys got a laugh out of that. I did send that to David Blase as well. Hopefully he will share that on these Friday Frolics this Friday as well. Yeah, that was definitely a laugh for sure, guys. Oh, excuse me. This is my 3rd live stream today, guys, just for reference, and because this is my 3rd live stream I've done today, and I also was live streaming for roughly 2 hours, covering some wrestling as well on the wrestling page as well. There, so I do apologize if I've been yawning and whatnot. It's not intentional, but I just want to say thank you to those who have been here live. Thank you for those who are watching. If you haven't already, please hit that like button, share this across social media, subscribe if you haven't to already. Bear in mind that we still got the funny memes to look at the end of this show, so do hang out for them as well. And we have just one super chat goal for today, so if we can hit that for this live stream, it'd be great. But if not, it's not the end of the world either. Those poor billionaires, says Joe. I know. Those poor billionaires. It's absolutely awful indeed. Right, switching gears, guys. We're going to be looking at something here in from NBC News. So apparently, Russian forces ride into the key Ukrainian city through fog on battered vehicles. Video shows the video likened to a scene from Mad Max was geolocated by NBC News to Prostrix, where fierce battle was taking place as Russia pushes to capture the city. So, yep, I'll just show you guys here. This is the footage. Don't worry, you're not going to see any conflict or bodies being blown up, but this is, check out the vehicles some of the Russians have here. Don't know about you, but that car doesn't look yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't think that's really a weapon of war. You know, where's the tanks? Where's the tanks, Putin? Where's the tanks? Oh, we got more bikes here. I don't go back there. What is that? What's that vehicle there? There we go. There's another armored vehicle, a weapon of war for Russia and its troops, guys. That's definitely a weapon of war for sure. We've got more motorbikes there. Another vehicle there. That's definitely a tank of some sort. Surely, guys. Surely that's a tank. Another vehicle here. What is this? Is this supposed to be? It looks like they've put like a racking around it, like a net to kind of cover, and I suppose the guy stands on top. They modified a vehicle here because, like, they don't have their own armored vehicles. From the looks of it there. Yeah, so it looks like they don't even have their own. Yeah, they modified that pickup. Yeah, so rather than their own, like, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that that this is not something that Putin and the high command cared about. This is just something Russian soldiers are doing in order to protect themselves and give themselves the best opportunity of advancing, trying to minimize their losses. But we know that they're getting thrown straight down the drain. The mighty Russian army. Yeah, this is the mighty Russian army, definitely. So a convoy rolls through the dense fog. Soldiers on motorbikes. Some are perched on the roof of cars missing doors and windows. Others on top of a battered truck. Debris covered the muddy Mock Park Road, generally located by NBC News to southern Prostrix, a city where fierce battles are taking place amid Russia's push to advance deeper into eastern Ukraine. After more than a year of fighting, there are growing signs that Russia may be about to capture the city, a logistics hub seen as a gateway to the broader region. Its forces have stretched defensive lines, with Ukraine's military saying Tuesday that there were more than 300 Russians in the city. Remember, Russians are throwing away far more soldiers than Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians are getting tired in this war. In recent days, Russians have intensified their efforts to enter Prostrix on light vehicles through the southern suburbs. The Ukrainian unit defending the city, the 7th Rapid Response Corps, said in a statement. To do this, the enemy uses adverse weather conditions, in particularly thick fog, it added. This reduces possibility of our aerial reconnaissance and destruction in open terrain. The video shows Russian troops moving through the thick haze as they pass the road sign marked Prostrix. Yeah, so there they are on the move. The footage was shared widely on Telegram by Russia's popular military bloggers, with some comparing its post-apocalyptic landscape to the scene from Mad Max action movies. Prostrix is a key Ukrainian transport and supply hub that Russian forces claimed to have encircled earlier this month. It was home to some 60,000 people before the Kremlin launched its full-scale invasion. The Russian Defense Ministry said Tuesday that its forces were advancing in the northwest and east of the city. Moscow last week urged Ukrainian troops in Prostrix to surrender and save themselves, claiming that they were trapped. Kiev have repeatedly rejected these claims, with the 7th Rapid Response Corps saying Tuesday that it continued to identify and destroy Russian soldiers in the city. It previously stated on Facebook that Ukrainian forces continue to maintain the defensive line, with supply routes still operational to the nearby city of Mariupol on the eastern front. Ukrainian forces, meanwhile, pulled back from their positions around 5 villages on the front line in the southeast because of Russian advances, and military spokesperson Vladimir Voskin confirmed to NBC News. If Poskis was forward, it could become a springboard for Russian forces to threaten nearby strongholds such as Komarich and Slavovax, as President Vladimir Putin eyes full control of its neighbour's industrial heartland known as the Donbass. Yep, they definitely want full control of that. That is for sure. I think, yeah, this is a... Let's have a quick look, guys, of what the deep state map is actually saying. Of that city. There it is. So here it is on the deep state map. They said it hasn't fallen, but doesn't look good. Go back by a couple of days. Yeah, if I keep going back by days, you can see they've been making advances all from... This is 19th of October, right? And if I just keep going every day forward, see, every day forward, you can see they've been making advances. Yeah. They're going to be forced to pull back. They're going to be forced to pull back there. But yeah, this is the... I don't know if you can see the dotted line there. If I pull in a little bit, will it show the dotted line? Yeah, you see that dotted line there? This is the Donbass. This is the Donbass region securing it here. So yeah, not good. Not good at all. And that's where the line is currently at the moment, according to the deep state map there. Mr. E, good evening to you. Hope you are doing well. There is active fighting in the city. Yeah, but it hasn't fallen. But Ukraine are trading Russian bodies for time. Yeah. It's unfortunately, I think it's only a matter of time before the city falls to Russian hands, I'm afraid. My advice is if there's any Ukrainian, if the Ukrainian civilians haven't left there, they're going to fall under Russian occupation. I do think it's only a matter of time. Yeah, it's hard for Deep State Map to know for certain, but we know it's been under siege for quite a while, and you can tell from the imagery, like they're being surrounded. Like, it's just not going to be able to hold. There. I have not Wales. Wales. Thank you for asking. I have not. Apologies. I've been super busy the last 2 days, so I do apologise. There. Yeah. I mean, we can only hope that they can hold out longer, guys. But I'm not going to hold my breath for it either, guys. Right, the next story I've got for you guys is an interesting one from Euronews here. So the EPP blocks Parliament's inquiry committee over spying allegations against Hungary's Secret Service. What is this about, guys? Let me read a bit more context before I give my thoughts, okay? So the European People's Party opposes setting up a Parliament's inquiry committee to investigate spying allegations against Hungary's Secret Service, on the basis that it would only help Viktor Orban's strategy to antagonise the EU. Progressives want to open an investigation immediately. So, yeah, it could be basically... They're basically saying here that the only reason why they don't want to... The only reason why they don't want to do this is they don't want to give ammunition for Viktor Orban to say it's its people. Look, they're victimising me again. Damn EU. So in October, the European Commission launched a probe after several media reports alleged that the Hungarian government tried to recruit EU employees in Brussels as informants. So yeah, that's not good. The agents reportedly posed as diplomats of the Hungarian permanent representation to the EU in Brussels, which was led between 2015 and 2019 by Oliver Varasky, who is now the Hungarian European Commissioner. Progressive groups in the European Parliament want to hold their own parliamentary inquiry committee into the matter. The Greens, Socialists and the Liberals of Renew Europe are pushing for an inquiry committee to be set up as soon as possible. Yet the EPP, the largest group in the Parliament, is opposing the move. Sources in the EPP said the inquiry will play into Viktor Orban's hands ahead of a tight election due in April, which he is competing against much younger Conservative candidate Peter Magard, who is also a member of the EPP. Yes, so this is actually, I actually agree with the EPP on this, because this is a very important election for Hungary, and we want to give the opposition the best possible chance to knocking off Viktor Orbán. Although, if I'm absolutely honest, guys, I do not expect this election to be free and fair in any way, shape, or form for the opposition candidate, no matter how popular he is. According to group sources, the EPP believes that a Parliament inquiry committee would create a stage for Hungarian Prime Minister to boost his domestic narrative against the EU institutions and present himself as the defender of the Hungarian nation. Still, the pro-European progressives said the inquiry is necessary as the allegations are serious. Hungary and Vasilevsky have denied the allegations. Of course they would. We want to be sure that all the facts are on the table. The Parliament's position may also have been damaged by this spying activity. Green MEP Tegli Stride, who is also Parliament's rapporteur for a report on the rule of law in Hungary, told Euronews. The question is not whether espionage took place, because we know it did. The question is where the information obtained through espionage ended up. Hungarian Socialist MEP Kaspar Moller told Euronews, suggesting the alleged spying was carried out on behalf of Russia and in Putin's interests. Euronews contacted EPP's chair Manfred Weber for comment. While an inquiry committee can be called with the votes of just 1/4 of Parliament MEPs, it needs to back in the majority of the Parliament to approve it. First step to trigger the process is the Confederates of Presidents, which include the heads of different groups and the Parliament's President Robert Melsola. Any decision within the COP is taken by the majority, where each leader's vote is coronated to the sides of the parliamentary group. That makes the EPP's vote pivotal for setting up an inquiry committee. According to Parliament's rules, inquiry committees can organise fact-finding missions, invite witnesses and hearing officials of the EU or member states, and request national authorities for assistance in the course of their investigation. Contrary to committees set up by some national parliaments, witnesses are not obliged to show up when called, nor to testify under oath. Look, I'm in agreement with the EPP here. I think, yeah, let's not do anything. If I'm from the European perspective, my position is, look, let's not do anything to give any kind of advantage to Viktor Orbán. Yes, it's dangerous about these informants potentially from Russia being as well, and I totally get that. But I would say as soon as the Russian elections end, regardless of the outcome, then set up the inquiry. I don't know when the election is going to be exactly. Let me actually find. I can actually find out. Actually, let me just ask Grok here. When is the next Hungary? Let me give it a second while it does that. The next Hungarian parliamentary election is scheduled for April 2026. As followed, 2026 vote will elect. No exact date has been set yet. It's been scheduled for April 2026, but no exact date has been set yet. Hungarian law requires general elections within 3 months or 4-year terms and ends typically spring, but April is the expected month based on historical patterns and current projections. Recent opinion polls show a tight race between. Okay. So it's not going to be for. Yeah, so unfortunately, it's not going to be a while, which is actually not good for Europe's perspective there. Still fascinating to say the least there. Let me just switch to that. Most European countries are already not sharing intel with Hungary. So even in Hungary, not all Hungarians are pro-Russian. In fact, most of them oppose them. Yeah, I do think it's not that that Hungary is pro-Russia. It's the government that is pro-Russia. I think a lot of them are not so much pro-Russia. I think a lot of it is just down to national pride and protecting the values of Hungary. I think that's what it is from an outside perspective. Right now, for example, Portugal is an intel operation with France, Germany, with France and Germany. And we have a permanent one with the UK, by the way, says Jal there as well. The last story I've got for you guys is from Al Jazeera here. So Russians have agreed to quit Serbian oil company as US sanctions are starting to bite. Russia's state-owned company Gazprom Neft to be forced out Serbia's NAS after impositions of Western sanctions. This is good. This is very good from. This is very good for. This is where credit is due to the Trump administration here for racking up the pressure on Vladimir Putin, and this is going to hurt, add to Russia's economy. I do need to check out. I don't know when, but I do need to check out Constantine the next time he talks about what's happening inside Russia. I haven't seen one of his videos since last week, maybe Monday or Tuesday, possibly. So I do need to catch up a little bit on what's been going on there. The new Syrian leader did visit the White House, the same one that had a $10,000 bounty prior. Yeah, I know. Crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. But he got a lot of concessions for Syria as well. He got some concessions for them. I mean, he would have given concessions to Trump. That would give him the concessions they need to reduce a lot of sanctions on his country. So let me read a bit more into this. So Russian owners have agreed to shell their shares of Serbia's Navala Industria. I can't say those words, guys. Come on. NIS, I'm just going to say. After the major oil and gas company was slapped with Western sanctions. The Russian state-controlled company Gazprom Neft owes a 44% stake in NIS, while an investment division, its parent company Gazprom, holds 11.3%. Serbian government retains 29.9% of the share of it. Serbia's energy minister, Dubravka, announced on social media on Tuesday that the Russian company had sent a request for the Office of Foreign Assets Controls, that's the RFAC, of the United States Treasury to request an extension of a sanctioned waiver based on negotiations with a third party. Quote, the petition states that the Russian side is ready to give up control and influence over the NAS company to a third party, she said, adding that the Serbian state supported this request. The minister said the RFAC has already reported some comments and Serbia anticipates it will know Washington's position as early as next week. Quote, time is running out and a solution has to be found, but the citizens must not suffer and run out of fuel. That won't and shouldn't happen, Dugovic had wrote. NIS is a major provider for the Serbian market, and the Balkan state is trying to ensure continued operation as winter approaches, and the US and its European allies ramp up pressure on Russia to end its war in Ukraine. The sanction NIS came into effect in early October, leading to banks processing the company's payments, and Croatia's JANAF pipeline stopping its deliveries of crude oil. Officials estimate that refineries can only operate until November 25th without new crude supplies. The broader package of US sanctions has also targeted Russia's two largest oil companies, Lukoil and Rosneft, and dozens of the subsidiaries. Lukoil has stakes in oil and gas projects in 11 countries, as well as refineries and petrol station networks across several European states. In late October, Lukoil announced it's pursuing a swift sale of several overseas assets. The company said it is talking with potential buyers and that transactions would be carried out under a sanctioned grace period that runs until November the 21st. Lukoil said it would seek an extension if necessary to complete the fast-tracked transaction. Ukraine's been increasingly calling for tougher sanctions and asset freezes against Russia, as well for Western-made defense systems and missile weapons. Well, again, it's good pressure, but you know, unfortunately, there's still too many nations who are relying on Russian oil and gas. But again, this is good news because it does show that the Trump administration's pressure is working to a certain extent. Obviously, the big one, of course, is getting India to stop taking on Russian gas and oil from them. That's a bit more difficult, though. But I do think this is helping. This does help Trump's image. He should shout about it, considering how terrible of a president he's been. Wales said many Russian oil companies in different countries are being forced to either sell off what they own, or the countries will nationalize the infrastructure, take it off the Russian oil company for them. Yeah, it's to protect their own business. Like they say to them, look, we don't have a problem with you, but because you're Russian, we can't have you. We can't have you. You know, the reality is it's just not gonna. We're gonna face the US sanctions unless you back out. Right. So for their point of view, they just don't have a choice, and this does hurt the Russian economy. This does hurt the Russian economy, but at the same time, it also, in a way, it will hurt some of these businesses and some of these economies to a small extent as well, but not as much as it will hurt Russia. And that's the main objective: is to put as much harm as we can to them as possible. That's the main goal. So, guys, before we head out, we've got the most important thing of all: the reason why everyone comes to this show called the Funny Memes. That's the only reason why people turn up for this live stream, that's for sure. But we've got 5 funny memes to go through here. Let me just check, is it going to switch over? It's going to switch over on here, but whether it will when I switch screen will be another matter. Anyway, here are the 5 funny memes for you guys today. My husband, a grown man, has taken Friday off work so he can play his new video game for 24 hours straight. My wife, a grown woman, doesn't have a hobby and gets mad when I enjoy mine. Leave the man alone. This customer walks in 10 seconds before we close, and she had the audacity to yell, "Yay, I made it!" Bitch, you made what? Made me mad. I know exactly what that feels like. I know exactly what that feels like. Lord, please give me a sign of what I should do. That's not what she wanted, Lord. Here's a photo of my Christmas tree. It's in the woods, 'cause it's fucking November. Yeah, it's in November. Didn't you know? Kia. And Nokia. You got your Kia at the top, and then at the bottom, there's Nokia. This is my favourite one out of all of them. Kia, Nokia. Dear, oh dear. Ah. So you might have gotten a laugh out of them, you might not have. Well, anyway, those are your 5 funny memes for tonight, guys. Before I head out, I just want to remind you guys, I'll be live tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. for another Good Morning show on Wednesday. And then I'll be back with the watch-along show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. So if you could join me for that, feel free to do so. And then on Thursday night, myself, Dave McGuinness, and Daily Blase will come together for a round table. I have one more guest. I still have got a slot for one more. I have reached out for a regular one who normally turns up for our shows. I'll see if I can get him on short notice. If not, I can get another person at short notice as well there. But thank you guys for coming along tonight. Thank you guys for all your comments. Didn't get the one super chat tonight, but that's all right. Really appreciate you guys coming out here. Like I said, this is the quiet stream, so I'd appreciate people giving their time for this one anyway. But before you head out, if you can for me, please hit the like button. Share this across social media. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do check out Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content. And if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here, consider becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.